People always ask me what kind of grandmother I am. Well, I'm the kind who bakes chocolate chip cookies every Sunday, who keeps a drawer full of crayons and coloring books, and who would walk through fire for my grandchildren. But I'm also the kind who installed a hidden camera in my own living room to catch a monster. And that monster turned out to be someone I trusted with my whole heart. My name is Dorothy, and I'm 67 years old. I live in a small 2-bedroom house in Riverside, California, about 20 minutes from my daughter Susan and her family. After my husband Frank passed away 8 years ago from a heart attack, Susan became my rock. She called me every single day, brought the kids over every weekend, and made sure I never felt alone in this world. Susan has 2 children. There's Michael, who's 14 now and obsessed with basketball. And then there's my little angel, Lily. She just turned 6 last March, and she has these big brown eyes that could melt the coldest heart. When Lily was born, I remember holding her in the hospital and promising her that Grandma would always protect her. Always. About 2 years ago, Susan remarried. Her first husband, David, had left her for his secretary when Lily was just a baby. It devastated her. For years, she struggled as a single mother, working double shifts at the hospital as a nurse while I helped watch the kids. So when she met Brian at a hospital fundraiser, I was genuinely happy for her. He was a pediatric physical therapist, charming, attentive, and he seemed to adore the children. Brian moved in with them after 6 months of dating. They got married in a small ceremony at the courthouse, and I stood there watching my daughter smile in a way I hadn't seen in years. I thought our family was finally healing. I was so wrong. It started small. So small that I almost missed it entirely. Every Friday afternoon, Susan would drop Lily off at my house so she could work her evening shift at the hospital. Brian worked regular hours, but Susan said it was easier for me to watch Lily rather than have her home with just Brian. At the time, I thought nothing of it. I loved having Lily to myself. But then I started noticing things. Lily would arrive at my house completely fine, happy, and energetic. We'd play, I'd cook her dinner, we'd watch cartoons together. Normal grandmother and granddaughter stuff. But by Saturday morning, something was different. Lily would wake up with terrible stomach pains. She'd vomit. She'd have diarrhea. She'd be so weak she could barely get out of bed. The first time it happened, I panicked. I called Susan immediately, and she rushed over. We took Lily to urgent care, but by the time we got there, Lily was already starting to feel better. The doctor said it was probably just a stomach bug. Kids get them all the time. But then it happened again the next weekend. And the weekend after that. Every single Friday night or Saturday morning, like clockwork, Lily would get violently ill at my house. And every single time, she'd recover by Sunday afternoon, just in time to go home. Can you believe that? I started keeping a journal. Call it grandmother's intuition, call it paranoia, but something felt deeply wrong. In my notebook, I wrote down exactly what Lily ate at my house, what she drank, what she touched. I cleaned obsessively. I threw out all my old food and bought everything fresh. I even had the water in my house tested. Nothing explained it. Susan took Lily to specialist after specialist, pediatric gastroenterologist, allergist, even a neurologist. They ran blood tests, stool samples, imaging scans. Everything came back normal. One doctor suggested it might be anxiety-related, that maybe Lily was stressed about something and it was manifesting physically. But Lily was 6. What could a 6-year-old possibly be anxious about? Then one day, Susan mentioned something that made my blood run cold. We were sitting in my kitchen, drinking coffee while Lily napped on my couch. Susan looked exhausted. "The doctors are completely stumped," she said, rubbing her temples. "Dr. Patterson even suggested we see a psychiatrist. Can you imagine? Lily's not crazy, Mom. She's just sick." "I know, sweetheart," I said. "We'll figure this out." "Brian's been amazing, though," Susan continued. "He's been researching everything online. He even found this support group for parents of children with mystery illnesses. He spends hours talking to other parents, comparing symptoms, looking for answers." Something flickered in the back of my mind, a tiny warning bell. "That's very dedicated of him," I said carefully. "He really loves Lily," Susan said. "Sometimes I think he cares about her illness more than I do. He's the one who reminds me to give her the special vitamins he bought. He's the one who keeps track of all her symptoms in this detailed spreadsheet." I nodded. But inside, my mind was racing. That night, after Susan picked up Lily, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what she'd said. Brian was tracking Lily's symptoms obsessively. Brian was giving her special vitamins. Brian was involved in support groups for sick children. A memory surfaced unbidden, something I'd read years ago in a magazine at my dentist's office. An article about a mother who had secretly poisoned her own child to get attention and sympathy from doctors and family members. The condition had a name. What was it? I got out of bed at 2 a.m. and sat at my old desktop computer. My fingers trembled as I typed into the search bar. Munchausen syndrome by proxy, also known as factitious disorder imposed on another. I read for hours. I read about caregivers who deliberately made children sick so they could play the role of devoted parent. I read about the warning signs: illness that only occurs when the caregiver is present, symptoms that don't respond to treatment, a caregiver who seems to enjoy the medical attention, who knows too much about the illness, who forms close relationships with medical staff. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. But wait, this couldn't be right. Brian wasn't Lily's primary caregiver. Susan was, and Lily got sick at my house, not at home with Brian. Unless Brian was doing something before Lily came to my house, something that would make her sick hours later. But how? What? I felt sick
myself
just thinking about it.
In my time leading this department, I've learned that true innovation
Brian,
often comes
my
from
daughter's
unexpected
husband,
places.
the man
It's
who
about
played tea
empowering
party
your
with
team
Lily
to explore
and
new
taught
ideas.
Michael how to throw a football. How could I even consider that he might be hurting her? But the pattern was undeniable. Every Friday, Lily came to my house after spending the afternoon with Brian while Susan worked. Every Saturday, Lily was deathly ill. Every Sunday, she recovered just in time to go home. I needed proof. I couldn't destroy my family over a suspicion. I couldn't accuse a man of something so horrific without evidence. So I made a decision that still gives me chills when I think about it. I went to Best Buy and bought a small, hidden camera. The kind that looks like a regular phone charger, but records everything in the room. The salesman probably thought I was a paranoid old woman. Maybe I was, but my granddaughter's life was at stake. The following Friday, I set up the camera in my living room before Susan dropped Lily off. I made sure it had a clear view of the kitchen, the dining area, and the couch where Lily usually played. Susan arrived around 4 p.m. Lily bounded through my door, gave me a huge hug, and immediately asked if we could make cookies. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, trying to keep my voice normal. Susan lingered in the doorway. She looked tired, but she was smiling. "Brian packed her bag today," Susan said. "He put in her vitamins and some snacks he bought special for her. Make sure she takes her vitamin before bed, okay? Brian says it's important for her immune system." My stomach dropped. "What kind of vitamins are they?" I asked, keeping my voice light. "Oh, some fancy children's multivitamin he found online. He researched them for weeks. They're supposed to be really good for kids with sensitive stomachs." I nodded and took Lily's backpack from Susan. It felt like I was holding a bomb. After Susan left, I didn't give Lily the vitamin. Instead, I told her we'd save it for later and distracted her with cookie baking. She was so excited she forgot all about it. That night, something miraculous happened. Lily slept through the entire night. No stomach pains, no vomiting, no crying. When she woke up Saturday morning, she was bright-eyed and hungry, asking for pancakes. I made her pancakes with fresh blueberries. She ate 2 full plates. She laughed, she played, she sang songs from her favorite cartoon. She was perfectly, completely healthy. For the first time in months, I watched my granddaughter be a normal, happy 6-year-old on a Saturday morning. And I knew with absolute certainty that something in that vitamin was making her sick. But I needed more than my intuition. I needed evidence that would hold up. So I came up with a plan. The following Friday, I went along with everything as usual. Susan dropped Lily off with the backpack Brian had packed. This time, I pretended to give Lily the vitamin, but I actually palmed it and slipped it into a plastic bag. I gave her a regular children's vitamin from my own cabinet instead. Again, Lily was fine all weekend. Not a single symptom. I now had 2 weekends of evidence, but I knew that Brian would get suspicious if Lily stopped getting sick. I needed to act fast. On Monday morning, I called my old friend Ruth. Ruth's son is a detective with the Riverside Police Department. I asked if I could meet with him, explaining that it was about a family matter involving a child. Detective Mark Thompson met me at a coffee shop that afternoon. He was patient and kind, and he didn't make me feel like a crazy old woman when I told him my suspicions. "Mrs. Patterson," he said carefully, "what you're describing is extremely serious. Munchausen by proxy is a form of child abuse, but we need solid evidence before we can do anything." "I have the vitamins," I said, sliding the plastic bag across the table. "Can you test them?" Mark looked at the bag, then at me. "I can have our lab analyze them, but it might take a few days. In the meantime, I need you to keep acting normal. Don't let Brian suspect anything." I agreed, though acting normal felt impossible. 3 days later, Mark called me. "Mrs. Patterson, you need to come to the station, right now." My hands were shaking as I drove to the police department. When I arrived, Mark led me to a small conference room where a woman in a white coat was waiting. "This is Dr. Chen from our forensic laboratory," Mark said. She analyzed the vitamins. Dr. Chen opened a folder on the table. "Mrs. Patterson, what we found is extremely concerning. These pills contain a compound called ipecac, which induces severe vomiting and diarrhea. They also contain small amounts of a laxative called bisacodyl. The combination would cause intense gastrointestinal distress for 12 to 24 hours before the body metabolized it completely." I couldn't breathe. "Someone has been deliberately making your granddaughter sick," Dr. Chen continued. "The doses were carefully measured, enough to cause severe symptoms, but not enough to cause permanent damage or death. This was calculated." Mark leaned forward. "Mrs. Patterson, I need to ask you some more questions about Brian." I told them everything. How Brian had started researching Lily's illness obsessively, how he was the one who gave Lily the
I'm
vitamins,
glad you're here to learn
how he
about
was
this new
involved in
initiative.
support groups for parents
I'm
of sick
confident
children,
it will bring
how the
positive
illness
changes
started
to our
shortly after
community.
he moved in with the family. Mark nodded grimly. "We're going to need to search their house. Can you keep Lily at your place this weekend without raising suspicion?" I called Susan that night and offered to take Lily for the entire weekend so she and Brian could have a date night. Susan was thrilled. She said Brian had been so stressed lately with Lily's illness, and they could really use some alone time. If only she knew. On Saturday morning, while Lily and I were making breakfast together, the police executed a search warrant on Susan's house. I was in my kitchen, flipping pancakes, when my phone rang. It was Mark. "We found it," he said. "We found everything." My knees buckled. I had to grab the counter to keep from falling. In his home office, hidden in a locked drawer, Mark continued, bottles of ipecac syrup, laxatives, a journal documenting every single time he made Lily sick. He wrote about the attention he got from Susan, how close it brought them together, how the nurses at the hospital knew his name, how the doctors respected his knowledge. I was crying now, silently, trying not to let Lily see. "He also had a file on his computer," Mark said, his voice heavy. "He was a member of online forums where people share tips on how to make children sick without getting caught. He'd been planning this for over a year before he even met your daughter." "Oh my God," I whispered. "Mrs. Patterson, your son-in-law has been arrested. He's being charged with aggravated child abuse, assault on a minor, and reckless endangerment. Given the premeditation and the length of the abuse, he's looking at serious prison time." I hung up the phone and looked at Lily. She was sitting at my kitchen table, completely oblivious, drawing a picture of a rainbow with crayons. My precious granddaughter had no idea that the man who tucked her in at night, who read her bedtime stories, who called her his special girl, had been poisoning her for months. Telling Susan was the hardest thing I've ever done. She came to my house that afternoon, confused about why the police were at her home. When I explained everything, when I showed her the evidence, when I told her what Brian had been doing to her daughter, she collapsed. I've never heard anyone scream like that. It was the sound of a mother's heart shattering into a million pieces. "I trusted him," she kept saying, over and over. "I trusted him with my children. I brought him into our home. I let him near my baby." I held her while she sobbed. There was nothing I could say to make it better. Nothing could undo what had been done. The investigation revealed even more disturbing details. Brian had done this before. His first wife, who he'd divorced 5 years earlier, had a son from a previous marriage. That boy had suffered from mysterious illnesses during their marriage. After the divorce, the boy's health improved dramatically. His ex-wife had always suspected something was wrong, but she could never prove it. With Lily, Brian had gotten bolder, more confident, more careless. And thank God he did, because his carelessness led me to discover the truth. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified about the vitamins, about keeping the journal, about my suspicions. Susan testified about Brian's behavior, his obsessive interest in Lily's illness, his involvement in the medical appointments. But the most powerful testimony came from the forensic psychologist who evaluated Brian. The defendant suffers from factitious disorder imposed on another, the psychologist explained to the jury. He deliberately causes illness in a vulnerable person, in this case a child, in order to gain attention, sympathy, and admiration. He enjoyed being seen as the devoted, caring stepfather. He thrived on the attention from medical professionals. He was addicted to the drama of the illness and the recovery. In his journal, the psychologist continued, he wrote about how sick Lily made Susan need him more, how it made him feel important, how he was the hero of the family because he was so dedicated to helping her. He had no remorse for the suffering he caused. In fact, he expressed frustration when Lily recovered too quickly because it meant the attention would fade. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Brian was sentenced to 18 years in state prison. The judge called his actions a profound betrayal of trust and a heinous crime against an innocent child. When the verdict was read, I looked at Susan. She was crying, but there was also something like relief on her face. Relief that it was over. Relief that the monster who had hurt her daughter would never be able to do it again. It's been 2 years since Brian went to prison. Lily is 8 now. She's healthy. She's happy. She plays soccer and takes ballet lessons and wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up. She doesn't remember much about the time she was sick, and we've all agreed that we'll tell her the full truth when she's older and can understand it. Susan still struggles sometimes. She goes to therapy twice a week to deal with the guilt of not seeing what was right in front of her.
Dedication and a
I
clear
keep
vision
telling her
can
it wasn't her
truly change
fault.
The trajectory of your
Brian
career.
was a master
It started
manipulator.
about 10 years ago,
He
right
fooled
here in this
everyone.
office.
Doctors, nurses, friends, family, everyone except a paranoid old grandmother with a hidden camera and a gut feeling she couldn't ignore. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I hadn't trusted my instincts. What if I had dismissed my suspicions as the paranoid delusions of a lonely widow? What if I had been too afraid to investigate, too afraid of being wrong, too afraid of destroying my family? I think about that a lot. The thing is, families are supposed to protect each other. We're supposed to trust each other. When you love someone, your instinct is to see the best in them, to give them the benefit of the doubt, to believe they would never hurt you or the people you love. But sometimes that trust is weaponized against you. Sometimes the person you trust the most is the one causing the harm. And sometimes being a good grandmother, a good mother, a good family member means being willing to ask the hard questions. It means being willing to look at the people you love and consider the possibility that they might not be who they seem. It means being brave enough to investigate, to gather evidence, to go to the authorities, even when every fiber of your being is screaming that you must be wrong. I never wanted to be the kind of person who spies on family members with hidden cameras. I never wanted to be suspicious and paranoid, but I'm glad I was. Because my suspicion and my paranoia saved my granddaughter's life. These days, my Fridays look very different. Susan still drops Lily off at my house while she works her evening shift. But now Lily bounds through my door with nothing but a backpack full of toys and homework. No special vitamins. No mysterious supplements. Just a normal, healthy little girl excited to spend the weekend with her grandma. And every Saturday morning, when Lily wakes up happy and healthy, when she asks for pancakes with a big smile on her face, I say a silent prayer of thanks. Thank you for giving me the wisdom to see the signs. Thank you for giving me the courage to act. Thank you for letting me protect my granddaughter when she couldn't protect herself. If you're watching this and something feels wrong in your family, if a child in your life is sick in ways that don't make sense, if your gut is telling you something is off, please listen to it. Don't dismiss it as paranoia. Don't worry about causing family drama. Don't be afraid of being wrong, because what if you're right? What if your suspicion is the only thing standing between a child and the person hurting them? I know it's hard. Believe me, I know. Accusing a family member of abuse is one of the most difficult things a person can do. But I promise you, it's not as hard as living with the knowledge that you could have stopped it and didn't. Trust your instincts. Ask the hard questions. And if something feels wrong, investigate. You might just save a life. Last month, Lily gave me a drawing she made at school. It was a picture of the two of us, holding hands in front of my house. Above our heads, she had written in her careful, 6-year-old handwriting, "Grandma is my hero." I cried for an hour after she gave it to me. I'm not a hero. I'm just a grandmother who loved her granddaughter enough to fight for her. I'm just an old woman who refused to ignore the voice in her head telling her something was wrong. I'm just a person who decided that the risk of being wrong was worth it if it meant keeping a child safe. And I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Because that's what family does. We protect each other, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when the threat comes from within. Lily doesn't know the full story yet. But someday, when she's older, I'll tell her. I'll tell her about the hidden camera and the vitamins and the detective who helped us. I'll tell her about her mother's strength in leaving a man she loved when she learned the truth. I'll tell her about the judge who made sure Brian would never hurt another child. And I'll tell her the most important lesson I've learned in my 67 years on this earth. Love isn't just a feeling, it's an action. It's showing up, even when it's hard. It's asking the uncomfortable questions. It's trusting your instincts, even when everyone around you thinks you're crazy. It's being willing to fight for the people you love, even when the person you're fighting against is someone you once trusted. That's what love looks like, and that's the kind of grandmother I am. So if you ever find yourself in a situation like mine, if you ever have that nagging feeling that something is wrong with a child you love, remember Dorothy's story. Remember that it's okay to be suspicious. It's okay to investigate. It's okay to trust your gut. Because somewhere out there might be another Lily. Another child whose body is being used as a pawn for someone else's sick need for attention. Another innocent life being destroyed by someone who should be protecting them. And that child needs someone to notice. Someone to care. Someone to be brave enough to act. Maybe that someone is you. If you found this story helpful, please like and share it. Not for me, but for all the children out there who need someone to speak up for them. The more people who know about Munchausen by proxy, the more likely we are to catch these predators before they can do more damage. And if you're a survivor of this kind of abuse, or if you're a family member who discovered the truth like I did, please know that you're not alone. There are resources out there, there are people who understand. And there is life after the horror. Stay safe, everyone. Trust your instincts. And never, ever stop fighting for the children in your life. They're counting on us.